We are back. We are back. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. I am Montlake Miguel, and this is Mondays on Montlake. On today's episode, we're going to get into looking at can Washington actually win the Big Ten this year? But first, make sure you go hit that like, subscribe button, leave a comment. If you're on Twitter and you don't follow me, please follow me. Same thing with TikTok. It's at Montlake Miguel or just Google it because it will pop up. I think I'm the only Montlake Miguel out there. Anyway, the bigger question for today's episode is, do the Huskies have enough this year to improve upon last year's 9 wins to win the Big Ten? Because if we're looking at the Big Ten, to get into the Big Ten championship game, you're going to need at least 10, likely 11 wins minimum to get into the Big Ten with how good the Big Ten is. And when you look at the schedule, there's a lot of games that are toss-ups that we don't know, and then there's a few games that are going to be tough ones to win. But I want to start looking into the reasons why we could possibly win the Big Ten this year. I think if you're going to start with that question of why we might win the Big Ten this year, I think the first place you always have to look at for any championship team is the quarterback. They all start with a great quarterback. And Washington's Demond Williams last year threw for 3,065 yards, 25 touchdowns, throwing at almost a 70% clip, 69.5. He rushed for another 611 touchdowns total, or 611 yards, totaling 31 touchdowns and over 3,600 total yards as a 19-year-old sophomore. And Washington's offense averaged 34 points per game. That's a lot of numbers for a 19-year-old that has a lot of room to improve. And I think when we're talking about how Demond is going to affect this team, we know, like I just said, quarterbacks are the ones that lead teams to this. And Demond is already statistically one of the upper echelon quarterbacks in the conference as far as yards and touchdowns goes, and that's actual production. What happens if he improves just 10% in year two? What if he has around 4,000 total yards and 36 touchdowns? It's hard to do all that against a weak non-conference schedule. That means he would have to be doing that against some of the big boys. And I think it shows you Washington's ceiling is going to depend a lot on what Demond Williams' ceiling is. If he can play up to his potential and fix the problems he had last year, and we know what those problems were, I covered them greatly on one of the earlier episodes, it could be a huge game changer for UW and their chances at winning the Big Ten. All right, the second thing that I think is going to be a huge, huge factor towards Washington having a chance at winning the Big Ten. That's Ryan Walters. History shows that in the second year of him running defenses, his defenses always take a significant jump. If you look at Missouri in 2018, year one, they were averaging 25.5 points a game and 388 yards allowed per game. Year two, that jumps up to 19.4 points per game, only 312 yards per game. They're a top 20 scoring defense, a top 15 total defense, and a top 10 pass defense. That's just year two, and that's a place like Missouri. If you look at Illinois in year before Walters got there, they were 97th in scoring, 114th in total defense. That's in 2020. 2021, they improved from 97th to 29th in scoring defense and improved to 49th in total defense from 114th. In year two, they are number one defensively in the nation with defense with scoring defense nationally at 12.3 points per game. And then they're number two in total defense at 263 yards per game. Led the nation with 22 interceptions. They were Broyles Award finalists, and he was a defensive coordinator of the year. That is huge. Now let's look at what he's done at Washington. In his first year, Washington allowed 18.7 points per game, which was 15th in the nation. That's a huge jump from 2024. 311.4 total yards per game. That's 21st in the nation. 100.1 rushing yards allowed per game is 11th in the nation. A huge jump in interceptions and red zone defense, all from 2024. This is a pattern for Ryan Walters. This isn't something that is, oh, it was a fluke. Year one is install, and that's what he did. And you saw what guys did with that install. Year two is turn it into one of the best defenses in college football. And I think he has all the pieces to do it. He did it at Missouri, he did it at Illinois. Why can't Washington be next? Is really the big question, especially with some of these guys that he has. Like, I'm thinking Alex McLaughlin is a big guy that has never played in the same defensive system for 2 years in a row, and this will be his first time doing that. Look at what he did last year. He was almost an all Big Ten player. Now he might and probably will exceed that. Like I said, Ryan Walters is going to be an X factor this year. All right, the third reason Washington's offensive line can make Washington elite. It's something that was huge last year. Championship teams, we know this, dominate at the line of scrimmage. Now, 409.9 yards per game, 34 points per game, 165.5 rushing yards per game is a pretty good thing to build off of from last season. Um, Guys like some of their big names like Drew Party, who's coming back again, third year here at Washington in the system. He only played 11 games last year. Imagine if he could stay healthy the whole time. Like I said before in one of the previous episodes, I think he's going to play himself into an NFL spot. We have a veteran line, we have continuity. They're going to be protecting Damon. They're going to be even better in the run game because of how the continuity of this offensive line is. And more than anything, they have depth. For the first time in the Jedfish era here at UW, this Washington offensive line has actual depth. You're looking at like Cody Green, um, John Mills, Landon Hatchett, Champ or Gary and Hatchett, likely going to be Champ. At least that's what I think. And I've said that from the jump. And then Drew has a party with Cole Dietrich backing up as a swing tackle, and likely Gary and Hatchett being able to back up everybody along the inside or the interior of that offensive line. Having seven starting quality guys on the roster is huge. But all these other guys, you have at least 9 to 10 guys that have actual Big Ten playing experience, and they're going to be bringing all of that to the table as we go into 2026. And I think it's a huge reason why these are a bunch of reasons why I think Washington is better than they were last year, and why we could see them take that jump from 9 wins to 10, 11 wins, maybe even 12, depending on how the season plays out and how the team gels. Now, you can't talk about all of the things that Washington can do to win the Big Ten. I think without mentioning the stuff that could cause them to not win the Big Ten, the things that are going to hold them back. First deficit that I actually want to talk about is probably the pass rush. And we don't know that it's a deficit, but it wasn't big last year, and it hasn't been for a couple of years now. We got guys like Jacob Lane, Isaiah Ward, Deuce Davis, Logan George. We're going to have linebackers like ZRS and X-Ray Russian. And then we have guys like Derek Coleman-Brusa, J.D. Hill, Deshaun Watts, Alenius Davis. You got a lot of guys that have a lot of talent, but none of them are proven with big sack numbers. And they're going to need real pressure. And with Ryan Walters' defense, he likes to show different fronts and bring exotic pressure schemes. But when a team can get pressure with the four down linemen or the 5 down linemen, depending on the front that we're showing, it makes things so much easier on the back end. And it's what leads to all the big interception numbers that we've seen at the past here at UW, and that Ryan Walters has seen in his system, whether it was at Missouri or Illinois. It doesn't make a difference. When you can get pressure with your defensive line, it changes the game. And if you have an elite group up there, it creates what you need for championship defense. Can these guys do that? That's a big time question. That's a real big time question. We already talked about Damon and his effect. If he can't be himself or if he regresses for any reason, and we can't lie about this. At Washington, we've seen quarterbacks who start off strong and then have regressed. Jake Browning was one of them. Jake Eason was another one of them. They're guys that we saw, even Michael Penix in his first year here, towards the end of the season wasn't the same as he was towards the beginning of the season. We've seen quarterback regression. Is that what's going to happen this year with Damon Williams? If it is, it could make for a long season. It could make where we may not hit that 9-10 win number. We might hit less than that if we see regression. And the third and final thing I'm going to bring up is the running game. You know, with the offensive line as good as it is, you would think we were going to be great in the running game. But none of the backs that we have in the stable, while they are all talented, but none of them are experienced or have a ton of experience. Some of these guys are coming off of injury. Some of these guys played in platoons. Some of these guys are just freshmen or redshirt freshmen. And I've seen it in practice and I know they can get the job done, but until they get the job done during the game, you can't bet your money on any of that. All right, now let's kind of look at what I could see as far as how this could play out if the Washington Huskies do win the Big Ten, or how they or what or the way it could play out if they're not going to win the Big Ten, or if it's going to be a rougher season than we think. So the current resume for Washington is they went 9-4 last year, an LA Bowl championship, final LA Bowl champions, had a top 20 offense and a top 20 defense. That says a lot. You know, Damon Williams should be even better this year. There's no reason to think he won't progress. He was a 19-year-old kid that did as well as he did last year. Ryan Walters is in year 2 of his tenure, and we know from his history that his defenses do progress and do get better. A veteran offensive line with some newcomers that are high impact, in the talent level on the offensive line has gone up. And we have defensive continuity, 2 years in the same system. So the way that I can see this playing out in I'm hoping is the likely scenario and what I think is going to happen is Washington will start off 4-0. They'll go down, beat a good USC team, show that their defense is really still holding strong and that the offense has great continuity. If they're going to drop a game, it'll either be the Indiana game at home or that Oregon game on the road. I don't think they lose both of those games. I think they only lose one of those games. I can really see the makings of an 11-1 season. Washington, though, usually has a loss on their record that they shouldn't have. And the Iowa game is one that kind of sticks out. I can see Washington going 11-1 or 10-2. If they go 10-2, it's going to be hard for them to get into the Big Ten championship game. But I can see them doing it at 10-2 because this Big Ten is going to be tough and there's going to be some parity. At 11-1, they're definitely in it, and they could go there. And if they're 11-1 playing in the Big Ten championship, there's no reason to believe that they can't win it and do well in the playoff. The way that I could see it going the other way is if the offense struggles because Damon Williams is struggling and some of the younger guys on the offensive line, like maybe a Cody Green or a Champ Talea struggle. If that happens and we say we drop the Indiana and the Oregon games and then maybe drop a USC or a Nebraska or one of those, I could see another 9-4 type season playing out that way. But after watching these guys in practice, I just don't believe it's going to happen. I think Washington has the talent to win the Big Ten. I really firmly believe it. They have talent all over the roster, but a lot of it is not proven on the field yet. There's certain positions like wide receiver where it's not a matter of if they have the talent. It's a matter of who is going to be the guy that steps up and blows up for them, because they are going to have one of those guys, and they have a lot of targets to fill with all the guys that left towards the NFL or graduation. Ryan Walters in year two is going to be huge, and I think you're going to see the defense go from being really good to being elite. And I think you're starting to see the blueprint of how this can happen. So yes, I do believe they could win the Big Ten, and they have the talent to win the Big Ten. If the quarterback and the offensive line can live up to the billing, and the running backs are as good as they seem, it's going to be a crazy, crazy season. I'm Mike Flaunt. This is Mondays on Montlake, and as always, go Dogs.